Welcome to the 28 Storms Tropical Weather Update for Saturday, July 16th. We have a couple things to look at. First off, we have a new invest out there off the east coast of Florida. It's called 98L Invest. The National Hurricane Center gives this about a 20% chance of development within the next 48 hours, and the hurricane hunters are scheduled to fly into this area tomorrow afternoon as long as it continues to look somewhat organized. Also in the eastern Pacific, we have two areas worth watching, although I really think the second one coming off the Nicaraguan and Costa Rican coast will be the main feature to watch as it moves progressively westward into the eastern Pacific Ocean. The latest graphic cast from the Tropical Analysis Forecast branch continues to emphasize the monsoon trough draped across much of Central America. As we can see, there are now two distinct low pressure centers, but it looks as though this is going to be the one that eventually goes ahead and more than likely will produce Tropical Storm Dora by the middle of next week. And you can also see the monsoon trough and its associated areas of low pressure on the latest surface map, but you can also make out a stalled frontal boundary that exists all the way from the north central Atlantic and extends all the way westward toward Jacksonville and even Louisiana and Mississippi. This is a look at the very most recent tropical model plots for 98L Invest, and as you can see, the BAM models do take this across the central Florida peninsula. However, I will not put too much weight on these models at the current time. This is a very dynamic pattern, and quite honestly, I don't expect these models to verify. On the latest visible, you can see that much of the Gulf and Caribbean are quiet, but to the north and the south, once again, we have two troughs of low pressure here. Both of those have the possibility of producing tropical cyclones, although the one in the eastern Pacific will more than likely have the better shot at doing so. As we look at the latest infrared, there's still nothing overly organized. We still have two competing centers, one near the Gulf of Tehuantepec, one just now beginning to enter the eastern Pacific basin. But give it a couple days and I think this whole area of low pressure will begin to come together here and form our next tropical cyclone for the eastern Pacific hurricane season. And we'll also be taking a close watch here to the east of Florida. It looked like yesterday the models were beginning to back off on the idea of any development there, but now we're beginning to have a weak low begin to form. That doesn't necessarily mean we'll eventually get a tropical depression or storm out of this, but it certainly bears watching as conditions are somewhat marginally favorable, as forecaster Stewart mentioned in the latest Hurricane Center Tropical Weather Outlook. Here's the latest water vapor imagery. You can see that much of the troughiness and vertical wind shear associated with it is located off toward the north of where our area of low pressure is. Again, the area of low pressure is again closer to Daytona Beach, or at least a little bit to the east of there, while much of the shear is just to the north. So we are seeing a very small pocket of upper level ridging here along the northern end of the Bahamas and points just to the north of there. One interesting thing is the more south this tropical disturbance to the east of Florida, the more south it can get, the better it will be, the better off it will be, because upper level shear is a little bit lesser down here, as we can see noted by the latest Sims wind shear analysis. Values are generally less than 5 knots here, and as we see that trough once again is a bit more toward the north near the Carolina coast, and it's stuck between this area of mid to upper level ridging over the central United States and the trough down here, so we're not expecting to see much in the way of movement over the next 48 to 72 hours. If we look at a more zoomed in visible, we can make out a low level circulation. It originally started near 30 degrees north latitude earlier in the day, but as you can see toward the second half of the afternoon, it has taken on more of a southeast movement. And if we look at the latest infrared, we have seen an increase in convection near where the center is located. If this can keep itself together and maintain convection near the center overnight, then this could make for an interesting day tomorrow. Again, the reconnaissance plane is expected to investigate this area of low pressure tomorrow afternoon if it's still holding together. As of right now, none of the models really show much in the way of development, but once again, if it slides into that area of more favorable upper level conditions, then it would not be so surprising if we did get a weak tropical depression or a tropical storm out of this feature. Here's just a quick look at some of the latest surface observations from the east coast of Florida and the western Atlantic, and there's really nothing all that impressive that stands out, although you can make out a weak presence of a low pressure center located somewhere up in here. Also, if we look really quickly at the latest upper level divergence chart, you can see that we do have positive values near the frontal boundary, so that's going to help kick off some convection, and it's just a matter of whether or not it persists directly near that low level center. This is the 850 millibar vorticity, and still nothing stands out too much here just yet. As we can see, there is a positive increase in vorticity all along that front. It extends all the way toward Gulfport and Biloxi. So until this 850 millibar vorticity max begins to perk up a little bit here near the east coast of Florida, I won't be too concerned. But once again, that is a positive sign on the visible and infrared that this thing might be trying to organize late this afternoon. Now, we've already seen the tropical model suite. Now, if we take a look at the dynamical models, we'll start off with the 12Z Canadian. As you can see, it's very aggressive on developing Tropical Storm Dora in the next 24 to 72 hours here across the eastern Pacific. In fact, if this run were to verify, Dora may actually try to become a minimal hurricane out here, but the Canadian is more than likely developing this just a bit too fast, and it's really not showing any development from our low to the east of Florida. We can see a little bit better on the 850 millibar vorticity forecast that it really just keeps the area of low pressure drawn out from west to east along here until the whole trough altogether begins to lift toward the northeast as a stronger trough begins to come into play and kicks everything out to sea, while our storm continues to move west-northwest in the eastern Pacific. The 12Z GFS is all not that aggressive on the western Atlantic low either. It still agrees with the Canadian that we will see tropical development to the south of Mexico. And much like the Canadian, it really just keeps everything elongated out here. No real signs of organization, and then eventually within the next 4 to 6 days it begins to lift off toward the northeast with no development occurring. The 12Z ECMWF is in agreement with the other aforementioned models. As you can see, it just keeps the vorticity stretched out here across much of the northern Bahamas and western Atlantic. We do see a very weak area of low pressure begin to form within 48 hours here to the northeast of Nassau, but it doesn't really do much, and it does kick it out to sea as that more powerful trough comes in from the north, and that's really about it. And if we rewind this just a little bit, we'll notice that it also develops that storm in the eastern Pacific. This is now by 48 hours, and by day 3 we definitely have a full-fledged tropical storm here to the south of the Gulf of Tehuantepec, safely moving west to west-northwest, but at a safe enough distance away from Mexico so that it doesn't bring any direct influence. Now, although the GFS did not want to develop anything north of the Bahamas, I still figured it would be a good idea to look at the latest shear forecast, and the model correctly initializes much of the shear near the Carolinas, and it still has that favorable little pocket of upper-level ridging here where our low-pressure center is located. And if we advance this over the next 72 hours, we see that upper-level winds do remain generally light where this system is located. So I don't want to completely rule out the odds of a weak tropical depression, possibly a minimal tropical storm forming. Again, I would still place those odds probably at something less than 50%, probably closer to 30 to 40%, but I am a bit intrigued by that low-level circulation noted on visible, along with that slight increase in convection, along with the fact that upper-level winds really are not that unfavorable here, just to the north of the Bahamas. Overall, I don't think that this is going to be a major problem. As we saw in all the dynamical models, they still take this eventually out to sea. And even if it did follow the tropical model suite, the same models that took this towards central Florida, it would not be an overly strong storm. And if anything, it would just aid in benefiting you with some rainfall that is much needed. So I'm not terribly concerned about that system. And of course, down there in the eastern Pacific, it does look like Dora will form. But as of right now, I do somewhat like the model consensus that takes us just to the south of Mexico, at least over the first 3 to 4 days. Now, before I wrap up today's video, I do want to take you into the western Pacific for just one moment. We're still dealing with Typhoon Mayon out there. It has maximum sustained winds of 110 knots, making this a Category 3. In fact, an upper-end Category 3 on the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale. It's still heading toward Japan, where it looks like it will be making a rendezvous on the 19th. And look at this forecast. It's not expected to move very much at all. This is by Thursday afternoon, at least American time. And sure enough, it's only just to the east of Tokyo. So this is going to be a very slow-moving storm, and it could very well pack major hurricane-force winds here along southern portions of the Japanese coast. We don't have the luxury to look at visible imagery at the moment since it is still dark out there in the western Pacific. But if we look at the latest infrared, it does look like this typhoon is beginning to organize a little bit further once again. So it's more than likely going to be upgraded in the next advisory, or at least the winds will be increased. As we can see, that eye is beginning to become a little bit better present, and it also looks like the northern semicircle is becoming better defined. For the last 3 to 4 days, we've had a lot of dry air intrusion, but it looks like that may be receding at least temporarily. And we can see what's going on a little bit better on the regional water vapor imagery. We can see that that dry air has been present all along this time, just to the north of the typhoon, But once again, it looks like that northern semicircle is beginning to make a bit of a comeback, and it's beginning to ride around the western periphery of the subtropical ridge that's located right around here, and this is going to draw the typhoon up straight towards southern Japan. And once again, hopefully that nation is prepared. I know they've had a lot of natural catastrophes in recent times, most notably the typhoon and earthquake, so hopefully residents are still prepared for the worst over there. So that sums up your tropical weather for this Saturday evening. If the tropical disturbance to the east of Florida continues to show signs of development, you can anticipate more frequent updates on our latest Facebook and Twitter feed, along with more updates on the website and an increase in videos. But again, that's only if the system begins to show any additional signs of organization. As of right now, I still don't foresee this becoming our next system, but it's still an outside chance, and it is relatively close to home. So we'll definitely be keeping a close watch on things throughout the remainder of the weekend and into next week. So thanks again for visiting 28storms.com. Check back again soon for more updates in the future.